I'm gonna try wrestling with him. If you're gonna if you're gonna defend my takedown one time, I'm gonna try it second, third. I'm gonna try 100 times.
What's up, YouTube? This is the Pro Fight Fan, and welcome to my channel where we talk all things fighting. Today, I'll be breaking down Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje, and we're starting right now. In just about a week and a half, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje in what would appear to be a classic grappler versus striker matchup. But is there more to it? Let's have a look at each fighter. Starting with Justin Gaethje, since having entered the UFC, Gaethje has gone on to win 5 of his 7 fights, with only 2 losses to Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. Wins over Michael Johnson, James Vick, Edson Barbosa, Donald Cerrone, and most recently in what I would consider his best overall performance over Tony Ferguson. Looking over his UFC resume, while some of his opponents are no slouches on the ground, he's been matched predominantly with strikers. He's been taken down 2 times, once in his fight against Michael Johnson after Johnson had him hurt on his feet early in the fight. Johnson would proceed to take him down towards the end of that first round. And the second time was by Eddie Alvarez in the 3rd round of their fight. Dustin Poirier was 0-5 in takedown attempts against Gaethje, while none of his other UFC opponents attempted a takedown, which gives the human highlight a takedown defense of 80%, having stopped 8 out of 10 takedown attempts. If we were to stop there, it would be very difficult to assess Justin's takedown defense. However, outside of his UFC experience, Justin Gaethje has a pretty impressive wrestling resume, as he started wrestling at the age of 4. He would go on to become a 2-time high school state champ in Arizona and an NCAA Division I All-American during his time at the University of Northern Colorado, which are very high-level wrestling credentials. If you've ever seen any of his early professional fights, Gaethje would use his wrestling offensively quite a bit, but as time progressed and he saw the power that he had in his hands and kicks, he would resort to mainly using wrestling to defend takedowns and keep his fights standing. There are a few fights outside of the UFC where Justin's opponents would try to use a heavy wrestling approach against him, and Justin would show that he had very good takedown defense. The last fight prior to Gaethje joining the UFC was against Luis Firmino, who used a grappling heavy approach. In that fight, Firmino was 2 out of 12 with his takedowns, but was never able to really do much with them. Justin's main defense has been a lightning fast sprawl, and he would also use a whizzer and an underhook to bring his opponents up from his hips should they shoot and grab a hold of him. All in all, he clearly has a very strong wrestling base, but he has shown some weaknesses that a wrestler of Khabib's caliber could possibly exploit. It's interesting to know that Justin has shown a tendency to quickly turn and give up his back in order to get to his feet should his opponent take him down. There was one fight where Justin Gaethje was taken down and wasn't able to get to his feet the entire second half of the round, and that was against Brian the Bandit Cobb. On June 14, 2013, midway through the first round, Justin starts a flying knee and falls right into Cobb's takedown. The way he was taken down is not the main focal point here, because as a less experienced fighter at the time, Gaethje would try crazy attacks with no fear of consequence, and we know his approach is much smarter now. But he was not able to get up and was beaten down the remainder of the round. This is surprising with all the talk of his ability as a wrestler. He couldn't find a way to his feet, and only because of the bell was Cobb taken off of him. Now, Justin would go on to win that fight by leg kicks in the 3rd round, and Cobb wasn't able to find much success following that first round. So moving on, since his losses to Alvarez and Poirier, Gaethje has shown a much more controlled and methodical approach to his heavy striking pressure style of fighting. He still loads his punches and he's looking for the KO, but he's lighter on his feet and he bounces in and out of range much more, looking to avoid damage while using angles. Clearly his game plan is going to be to hit the like button and subscribe. Anyway, Gaethje is going to clearly try and keep the fight in the center of the cage and do his best to not allow Khabib to force him up against the cage where he'll be able to grab him and take him down. Gaethje has clearly stated that his goal is to inflict damage at all costs to Khabib while using knees and punches while controlling distance with his foot movement and angles in order to keep off of the cage. So we all know Gaethje's plan, and we also know Khabib's plan is to take Justin down. And it doesn't matter if he takes him down 100 times and Justin gets up 100 times, Khabib wants to continue to try and take him down. Moving on to Khabib. Khabib has been absolutely dominant throughout his entire career. He's only lost one round, and that was round 3 against Conor McGregor. That's one round in 58 rounds of his professional MMA career. That stat is absolutely insane. While many people speak about Khabib as a wrestler, and they're correct in doing so, Khabib has so many different ways of taking down his opponents, it's silly. He uses chain wrestling, which is basically putting moves in sequential order as your opponent defensively counters your offense. So Khabib will transition from a single leg, and if it's defended, well, he'll transition to running the pipe. And if that's defended, well, he'll transition to a forward or a backward trip or a mat return. He just continues to change the method he uses until he either slams you down, trips you down, or drags you down. Then once he has his opponent down, he is the best at controlling his opponent while inflicting damage. You know, smash his opponents. In facing Gaethje, he'll have a high-level striker who has good footwork, powerful hands, and strong, quick leg kicks. While much of Khabib's work is done against the cage when taking his opponents down, he has shown success in the center of the cage as well. He'll typically get his opponent to bite on a feint and dive for a single leg, and that's all he needs to get his hands on his opponent. The only vulnerability that Khabib has shown was in the fight with Michael Johnson, where he was slightly buckled by a right hook and a straight left hand. And that's really been it. Now, Michael Johnson has deceptively fast hands, and he also hurt Justin Gaethje in their first fight, and who can't forget the first round KO of Dustin Poirier. Anyway, Khabib has also shown power in his hands. Most of his opponents are ready for a takedown, but he does have 6 TKOs by punches and 1 KO. And we all saw him knock down McGregor with that unexpected overhand right. Overall, Khabib is the most dominant fighter in the UFC lightweight division. And while he sits as the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, it could be argued that he is the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter. Many have pointed to the passing of Khabib's father as a possible distraction. And while no doubt this is something that I'm sure is extremely difficult for Khabib, I believe it'll serve as motivation rather than distraction, as Khabib will want to honor his father and truly retire undefeated. Statistically speaking, Justin lands 7.74 significant strikes per minute. Interestingly, of his 7 opponents in the UFC, 5 of them have absorbed 4 or more strikes per minute. Now, Khabib only absorbs 1.65 strikes per minute. Even Dustin Poirier stated how awkward it is in the octagon with Khabib and elusive that he is because of the way that he moves. When you assess both fighters' styles and careers, the obvious choice has to be Khabib. I didn't like the fact that for all his wrestling credentials, Gaethje has shown vulnerability when taken down, and while that was a long time ago, due to his style of opponents, Gaethje has not had to focus heavily on his wrestling due to his striker-heavy opposition in the UFC. I see Khabib coming out cautiously as he did against McGregor, and eventually getting a hold of a single leg and using his chain wrestling to get Gaethje to the mat. From there, he will dominate and smash Justin. I can see Gaethje getting tired late in the second, and I believe we'll see a late second or early 3rd round stoppage, and yes, by rear naked choke again, as Gaethje is all too willing to give up his back and try to scramble to his feet. On October 24th, we'll hear and still. But this is MMA where anything can happen, and that's why we all watch. Leave a comment down below who you believe is going to win this fight. Thank you for watching. Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe. I'm the Pro Fight Fan. I'm signing out, and I'll see you in the next one.